All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Preeminent Producer Podcast. Today we are talking about if you are a commercial producer that wants to become preeminent and close more accounts, you need this number one thing, and that's what we're going to dive into today.
Are you a commercial insurance producer struggling to stand out from the competition? Do you find it challenging to grow your book of business and create a fulfilling career? If so, then welcome to the Preeminent Producer Podcast. Each week, we'll be tackling important topics, sharing proven strategies and insights from successful producers that are in the trenches and have traveled the journey to becoming a preeminent producer. You'll discover what it really takes to become preeminent and build your book of business in a way that isn't being taught anywhere else. Our hosts are experts in the field and have built thriving businesses by becoming the most trusted advisor to their clients. Welcome to your journey to becoming a preeminent producer. Let's dive in.
You know, one of the things that we as coaches have talked about and thought about is one of the first things a producer needs if they're going to become a preeminent producer is a compelling story. And it's answering the question, why should I do business with you? Because every time you show up to meet a client, to meet a prospect, the implied question, and sometimes literally the question is, why should I buy insurance from you? Why should I be talking to you? So you've got to really develop a compelling story, and we're not going to develop that today, but that's a whole separate subject where we can help you kind of do that. So you have to be able to explain who are you and what do you do. And I know in my industry, we couched it years ago. We were risk managers, and we used every term we could finally use except for insurance broker. And no, I'm an insurance broker. That's what I do. I'm proud of it. I think that immediately establishes in somebody's mind who you are and what you do without it being fuzzy. Now, I think many of us also come to this with a preconceived notion that when we say, I'm an insurance broker, you're going to see somebody do this. You know, you're going to see somebody go, oh, hey, all right. Yeah, I've got some of that. Thank you very much. But that's a preconceived notion that we have that may not be true in everyone's mind. Just like when you're sitting down with somebody and you make price the first object before they do, you're really putting the wrong thing in somebody's head. So be an insurance broker, be proud of it. There may be a negative connotation with some people, but don't you make that a negative something in your brain. Okay. So the question is, why should they talk to you? A compelling story needs to be briefly who you are and a little bit about you, but very little. Don't be too long on this. They don't really want to know that I'm in a national insurance agency and that we write over $2 billion of revenue and that we're the biggest and whatever. They don't care about that. What they want to know is I'm in the community. I'm one of them. I know a great deal about them. And that's it. And you can never outgrow me. So I don't want to go on and on. And we have a great big building and we do this and that. They really don't care because there's nothing in it for them.
Hey, Rick.
Sure.
Rick, I'm sorry. I'm just going to jump in here real quick because, okay, that's such a good point. And there's this, we've all experienced this and thought about it in our careers. I think there's this fine line about telling our story, but then learning to shut up and listen. Right. And then react to see where that's going.
Right. Because
we all love and people love to talk about themselves. And if you can get a prospect to do some of that, it really helps, create that bond. But backing up half a step, the tension there to me has always been to realize something very important. And I got this from a book that I read many years ago. Actually, it was a book my wife gave me. I think she thought I needed the message that was in the book. As I recall, the very first sentence of that book in the chapter 1 said, "It's not about you, period." And unfortunately, that particular book, after that fantastic start, just went downhill from there. But I've never forgotten that one line. It's not about you. Right. So anyway, I'm just pointing out that there is that sort of tension, as I put it there, that they do want to know about us, and we better have that compelling, engaging story. And then at some point we got to we got to listen and look up for the verbal cues that they're giving us,
Right.
Yeah.
And we should also back up here a little bit. The people you're contacting have been in your pipeline. You have researched them. They're qualified people. You know all about them. You're not going to ask, whether it's in a casual conversation or a phone call or a first meeting, tell me about your business. That sentence says, I'm just a sales guy or gal, and I don't know anything about you, and I'm too lazy to do my homework. So all of this, and we've done podcasts on pipelines before, and we'll do more of them, but this assumes you've got a highly qualified prospect that you're either seeing in person, you've just run into them in a social situation, you've called them on the phone. So that's it. The other thing that you need to remember and develop, why does it benefit them to talk to you? Because every time you ask, every time you say something, and what you should be saying are questions, but every time you say something, you've got to remember that in their mind, they're going, so what? Well, we have a person that's dedicated to you. So what? So does my current broker. So you've got to keep in mind what's in it for me. And every time you talk about a benefit, which you shouldn't be doing a great deal of, the answer is so what? And then you also need to define, how are you different from the competition? And we've also done podcasts on that. We've done, and we'll do that in the future. You just can't be the person who shows up 90 days prior to renewal, or you call them, they say, my insurance renews in we just renewed it. You go, oh, great, I'll call you about 90 days prior to renewal. So one thing you don't ever want to do, you always want to work off season, but you need to do something to be that zebra in a herd of horses. You need to be able to do something that sets you apart professionally and personally from every other insurance broker out there. So you also have to remember, and then I'll kind of shut up here, two things. Number one, if you're making a phone call, the purpose of that phone call is to not sell insurance. You're not trying to close somebody on an introductory phone call. The purpose of the phone call is to get a meeting. That's all it is. Hey, Christian, could I steal 20 minutes of your time? But whatever you want to do after you've had a little bit of a conversation, we'll help you develop those. And number two, the purpose of the first meeting is to not sell insurance. The purpose of the first meeting is to get the second meeting. First meeting, qualify the person. Is this someone that I want to do business with? Is this somebody, do they want to do business with me? Try to build a relationship, build a rapport. I've even asked people that. I've told that to people before. Hey, listen, Matt, the reason I'm out here today, really, I know you don't know me and I don't know you very well, is to just see if we have some sort of relationship that we could build upon, if we have something we might find in common, something we feel like we can do, kind of to see if I want to do business with you and you want to do business with me. This is a business meeting. So don't be afraid to go down those roads. Okay, now I'm going to shut up and let you guys chime in, please.
Well, I just wanted to jump in and say that, it is always about your prospect. If you put yourself first, they're going to see through that, and they've already made their decision to be with whoever they're already with. So, be careful you don't put down their other broker because you're actually putting down, your prospect. That's not a good thing. But I also wanted to chime in on what Matt said about the book. When you said that, I thought, man, I've heard that a lot. And you know where I've heard that? I've heard that from ladies that have broken up with me in the past. It's not about you. It's about me.
Yes.
Not you. It's
Not you and me.
So, and I was thinking about it, it's so true. Because, it's, if you think about it that way, we're not trying to break up. We're trying to actually become a date with your prospect. And so you have to put them first, and your job is to know what you can give them, what's in it for them, for your prospect. Right. And if you approach, your first call, your initial contact with them, why are they going to open up an email from me? Why are they going to take your call? Well, it's not how special you are. It's what are you going to give them? What are you going to do for them? And that's really the key here, is you constantly have to think that way. You may want to tell them how wonderful you are and how great your firm is, but you know, as Rick said, they don't care. They just don't care. You know, you can get there maybe sometime after they become a client, but what you want to do is figure out, okay, what's in it for them? I always got to be thinking that way. So anyway,
no, such good points. And there was something at our last Las Vegas conference, Rick, that you said that I'll never forget. It was really good, and that was, these prospects only listen to one radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me?
that's right.
Beautiful. I've never forgotten that, you know, and
I stole that from somebody else, and you know, it's so true, and that's why I remembered it, Matt. It is so true. They only listen to that. And now again, guys, I really want to reemphasize this, that you're talking to people that are in your pipeline. You know about them. You don't need to ask them what do they do. You've pre-qualified them. Christian's got a great form that we may be able to share with you that gives you some initial steps. So you've done all those steps. You've pre-qualified these people. Now you know they're in your sites. You also know their industry. So one of the things that you need to do is pepper your conversation with them with their industry specific terms and problems.
And what you bring them. You know, you could probably guess if you've done your research, and as you said, Rick, we've talked about this in prior podcasts, and I know we will again, but if you've done your research properly, you know why that prospect needs you. You can guess, you can figure it out before you even go see them by doing your research. And you want to, I think what I try to do is steer the conversation. You know, you want to have a very colloquial conversation with them because you want to establish a relationship. Right. I mean, you just don't go up to someone if you want to date them and start saying, "Oh, I'm just the greatest person in the world," you know, blah blah blah. No,
so that's what I was doing wrong. All right.
Yeah, but no, but I mean, yeah. So we talked about that before, and you're absolutely right. You know, if you go in and start puking, then that's what you are. And I would say this to the listeners though, that look, if it's happened to you, don't give up, but just be better the next time. I remember puking over clients at the beginning, and I would get rolled, and I would, you know, I would look back on it, Matt, and it was awful. It was awful.
You know what, Christian, and probably a big part of, and we've all been rolled, but a big part of why you got rolled in those sort of circumstances is because truly, when we do that, we're just like all the 80 or 90% of the other brokers out there, right? And so they get bored, they hear it, they're tired of the platitudes. It's a challenge. So I mean, it's just a very valuable use of time to, and even do this with your staff, your coworkers, whatever. An agency should do this, and every individual producer should, in my opinion. And that is, take the time to really think about these things and come up with that compelling story, come up with a unique sales proposition. What really makes you difference? What are you going to say if Rick, like you said, sometimes they might come out and ask it, "Hey, why should I go with you?" You know, Christian or whatever, you know, and they're looking. So yeah, we got to be prepared for that.
Now, here's a question for you guys real quick on the topic of having that story, because I know most people, I think, tend not to be storytellers. They don't view themselves as storytellers. When it comes to that, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this, when it comes to actually knowing what kind of story to tell, for clarity's sake, are we talking about stories about yourself, or are we talking about stories about other clients and prospects that you've talked to, that you've helped, that's relevant to their situation? And then based on the research you found about the prospect you're going to go talk to, oh man, I got that other client that had a similar situation. So that's the story. Is that how you guys formulate and know what story to tell?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I think, you know, Paul, if a listener doesn't see themselves as a storyteller, that's fine. I think professional insurance brokers, preeminent producers are solution-driven individuals, and they're driven to help their client find and deliver solutions to that client. And storytelling is a great way for people to understand what it is that you can deliver to them, because you set the stage, you're giving them, you're playing to a lot of different aspects of their emotions, and emotions are what are actually going to grab the person so they can recognize a story. But you're right, your story has to be on point, and it should be exactly a solution that you've delivered in a similar instance to a similar company. But it doesn't always, so I guess what I'm saying is you don't always have to deliver stories, but storytelling, more people can identify with that, I think, a lot easier.
Yes. And Paul, it kind of all depends as far as if you do have a client in a similar industry or even a different industry, but with a similar problem, and you do have a good story about that. Yeah, obviously you can work that in, but that, at least in my experience, that doesn't happen, all the time. Hey, I'm going to take a real quick tangent, if you guys will bear with me. There's kind of a flip side to this. We've been talking about our storytelling and this and that, but we've also talked about the need to listen to the client. And I have a quick story for you that deals with both. Okay, I'll make it real quick, but you guys will probably like this. I had a prospect that I was referred to. In my first meeting with him, he brought up to me a workers' comp, a kind of hairy workers' comp claim situation he was dealing with right now. And he said, I'm going tomorrow to sit down face to face with a carrier. And it was, anyway, it was and I said, now remember, he wasn't my client yet, but I just said on the spur of the moment, I said, would you like me to go with you?
Oh.
And he said, yeah. Guys, I ended up spending half a day at that carrier with the client. There was a lot of downtime. It was kind of strange. I had more than one claims person involved. And so this prospect of mine and I had some good downtime in the lobby, chunks of 20 minutes at a time. And what I found is that he was kind of a talker, and he would tell me about his life, and he would just go on. And then he would stop and I'd say, really? Well, tell me more about that or whatever. And he kept going. We weren't talking about business at all. And as it turned out, there wasn't a whole lot for me to do on his behalf with the claims adjusters, the way the claim had a life of its own. At the end of that day, though, again, he had spent, a lot of time with me. I knew all about his life. He knew nothing about me. He really didn't know anything about me. But at the end of that half a day, he said, Matt, thanks for coming with me. And, I really feel like I got to know you today, which is kind of points out, I guess, the power of, people like to talk. And if you'll listen, it's another way of building some rapport with them.
Well, I mean, number one, who's number one? Other than maybe we could talk about religion, but who's number one? It's probably yourself.
Number one.
People love to talk about themselves. They love to hear their names. And and that's, again, what's in it for me? What's in it for your prospect?
Good exercise. I think another good exercise, and I've done this with some of our producers, is you get sold things all the time.
Yes.
And you receive emails all the time saying, hey, we'd like to help you do this. Start looking at those emails. Start analyzing what's in it for me. So what? I've had people come in to sell us things, and I bring young producers into the conference room it could be somebody selling us a large printer, or it could be whatever it is. I'm with the producers there. Are they going to make the decision about the print? No. The man or woman who's made the presentation leaves and say, okay, what did you think about the sales presentation we just saw? Was it a puke? What did it speak to our need? And then we grade their performance, and we learn from what they did right and what they did wrong.
Yeah. And what you can steal from them.
Oh, God.
What they did. Those emails, Rick. I always am amazed at the emails I get from people trying to sell me something, lead lists, things like that I get all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wrote a guy back and said, hey, listen, I'm a sales coach. I got to help you out, buddy. And he ended up calling me. And I did. I said, I can't help myself. You seem like, your product is kind of good. I don't want it, but it looks like it would help some agencies, but your approach was horrible.
Right.
And he called me back and says, what's wrong with it? And I chatted for about 30. I should have sent him a bill. We chatted for about 30 minutes. He was a really nice guy. Yeah. And I said, okay, it's a puke. You're just all over my desk.
Yeah.
What's in it for me? And I've even asked people that are coming in to sell us things, why should I buy from you?
Mhm.
And you'll see people either go, well, or the prepared people will come in and say, because of this.
Right.
I think about the story of a buddy of mine who's a painter. His crew came over to paint my house. And I'm standing there with Ruben kind of going, so when are you going to paint? You know, you've been here for a day. I said, Rick, it's not about the painting. It's about the preparation. It's all prep. Very little time is spent painting. And it's true. When you watch a professional, anything, usually the majority of the time is prep. Us preparing ourselves, doing the practices before we call. If I'm going to call somebody who is a very big prospect, I don't want to make that call to them in the very, very first time. Chris does a really great job of talking about these low risk practices that you can do. You should rehearse that with somebody before you call these people. Call somebody in your office 5 or 6 times, play with each other, and make that call a much more effective call. By the way, don't start it out with your $1 million prospect. Let's get a few calls under our belt. Let's get a few things under our belt and work up to being able to call the bigger and bigger people. I know when we hire brand new producers, they've got a friend who's got $1 billion industry, and we go, no, we're not going out to see him or her yet. It's like, I'm on the first day and I'm on my job and I want to be your insurance broker. No. Let's couch those guys back here. Let them know what you are doing. You're in a training program that someday, but let's don't go after that, your biggest prospect in the world yet.
Right.
I'm curious, when you guys are coming up with stories, and I think back to, oddly enough, it was not insurance. I remember talking with a cyber specialist and a safety specialist. But when coming up with a story, the OSHA one, the safety one that had to do with OSHA definitely stood out. And this, I think, proves the point that stories not only sell, but they stick in your mind. It's like the biggest takeaway, right? And I remember the safety specialist was talking about a construction site that had OSHA came in randomly. And I guess somebody spotted some rebar without an end cap. I don't know if that's the right technical term, but it was like an end cap on this rebar. OSHA came in, fined the business like crazy amounts of money, and then came back again and found another end cap, not on a piece of rebar. And we were talking about thousands upon thousands, where if it was a small company, it could end up bankrupting this company. That's how much the fees and fines were. It was absolutely insane. So when the safety specialist telling me the story about the OSHA and then how he was able to go in and help this company, I thought, what a powerful way to be able to tell a story of a pain point. Now, if I was, in construction, man, I'd be like sold, right? And so I'm thinking, when it comes to figuring out what story, do you guys lean towards a story that is more pain problem driven, and then almost indirectly being able to position yourself as the authority and the solution of, hey, this guy had this problem, this company had this problem, and we were able to come in and do you find that the stories that you tell are more along lines with that, or
So.
not? I'm just curious if there's a strategy there, or if it's just, hey, a story pops in and that's what I do.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think, again, stories, Paul, validate what it is that you're trying to get your prospect to see that you provide a solution for. So, for example, I think of stories, if I'm selling, for example, cyber, I use the same story over and over and over about a client of ours who had a situation, and I go through the claim without naming them, and it's powerful. It is powerful because the people think, well, yeah, that could happen to me. The other story, and I just want to say this because, again, those that listen to this podcast, we may be talking about something, but you're going to get tidbits dropped, Easter eggs, whatever you want to call it, pieces of gold. I have a little bit of piece of gold here. In the nonprofit world, an OSHA inspection can destroy them. And you're right. OSHA comes in for one reason, and then they look over there and they see something else that was not for the reason they came in, and bam, you got $100,000 fine on your hands. Ooh, gives me chills. One of the things that we try to do with our nonprofits is, one of the stories I will tell, one of the pain points I will hit hard is, so, Matt, when in Maryland, it's MOSH. I don't know what it is. Each state has their own OSHA office.
Right.
And I'll ask the prospect, when MOSH came out and they did their inspection of your property, of your place, and you called them out, you called them to come out and do that inspection so that you weren't hit with a fine when they randomly came in, or you had a ticked off employee who wanted to get back at you and call OSHA or MOSH on some bogus thing. They have to respond to those things. And most of the, actually all the time, the prospect says, well, no, we didn't do that. Can we do that? Well, absolutely, we can do that. And that's one of the things we'll work with you on. We'll actually request an inspection. Okay, now why would you request MOSH or OSHA to come in? Because you want to avoid those things, but it's free and the client gets great loss prevention or recommendations from MOSH or OSHA. Now you do have to fix those items, but it's better to fix those items within the 30 or 45 days than to have a loss. So that's just a little piece of tidbit for those out there, producers who may be going after nonprofits, but that also works for contractors or other types of businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it allows you to take a brief story and then present, Paul, like you were saying, that solution to it, and it creates instant differentiation because
Boom.
This current guy didn't tell him about that. This is even a possibility, right?
Yep.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're the hero. And I think that's the other thing. You could look at it too. We talk about what's in it for me, for the producer. For the producer. Yeah, what's in it for the producer? What's in it for your prospect?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can also look at it as I tell my prospects, I want you to be the hero. I want to help you. If it's a finance person I'm dealing with, well, I'm going to focus on things that are going to help the bottom line of that organization. If I'm dealing with a safety manager, I want to try to help him or her with their safety processes and differentiate myself that way, and not come in and just spew how great we are, or we can save you money on your insurance, or all of that. They want to know what you can do for them,
right?
Yes.
Individually. So
yes, yeah, exactly right. And something you said there, Christian, reminded me of, well, recently I haven't shared it with you guys, and I won't do it now because you'll all be in tears at the beauty of the whole thing, but I created something.
Once again,
yes. I called it, and this is just my thinking, we would all come up with different 10 commandments, but I called it the 10 commandments of successful producing, or something like that. And one of those commandments I thought was kind of appropriate. And at this point, Paul, you're gonna have to do some editing. I've completely lost it.
That's real.
We're just here. It is. I recaptured it. Okay. I better spit it out before I forget it. It was,
hurry.
And I know you guys would all agree with this, and it fits right into what you were saying, I think, Christian. If we look out for our clients' best interests first, in the long run, that will serve our best interests.
Oh, yes.
Right? We have to do that. And it will definitely, in the long term, that will serve our best interests.
And I think, Matt, for the listeners out there, that's one of the benefits of listening to us chat and talk, is that we've seen that happen in our careers. And I think the easy thing to do and the natural thing to do for a producer is, I got to sell something. I need a client. And then that gets to the puke. That gets to, okay, you need to buy from me, and here's why you need to buy from me, blah, 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 blah. And you lose track of, wait a minute, that person is going to pull the trigger when they see value to them, not you, producer, but to them. So keep them first and foremost in your mind, how, what's in it for them. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I think we're going to actually coin that, Rick. I'm going to call that the Right Gardener radio station. I'm going to tell every prospect we own a radio station. Well, you need to listen to it. And here's what it is. What's in it for me?
Not bad.
Like I said, I stole it from somebody else. And speaking about that, as we go through this, as I've said it a few times, you probably aren't going to hear something that you may hear a few things you've never heard before, but selling is a basic skill things. there's very little new under the sun, but there is going back to doing those basic blocking and tackling things. And certainly we're selling insurance differently than we did 20, 10, and even 5 years ago. But building rapport, so building relationships, having a pipeline, all those kind of things you're going to hear. And we just need to keep those to the forefront, because as I say all the time, young producers will come into me and say, hey, listen, when you were growing up, did you make this mistake? And I just say, yes. I don't care what they ask me. I say, you bet, I made that mistake. Yeah, I don't care what you say. And then they'll tell me, of course I did that. And I think, well, I'll go back to the other thing I say all the time is success leaves clues. So what Matt has done and what Christian have done, what I have done, we're hoping will fast track you as you listen to the stories that we have, the recommendations that we make, and fast track you on the way to a bigger, better career, not a job, but a career. And there's a big difference between the two.
And improve, and in that process, Rick, improve our industry, improve what we do. Yes. We're professionals, and we've had success. Those listening to this can have great success. It's not transactional selling; it's relationship selling. It is having that client that loves you, depends upon you, and you get to that point again, coming back center to what's in it for them. Yeah, what's in it for them.
All right, guys, I hope that resonates and really hits home. By understanding, and to put it bluntly, people are naturally more self-centered. By knowing that, you can really cultivate and be able to tell compelling stories that causes the problem and solution to really resonate with them, and at the same time, position yourself as the expert, as the trusted advisor that really has the solution that you are bringing to them. So I recommend taking the time, thinking about that, chewing on it, and then implementing. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate if you take the chance and time to just like, subscribe, leave a review. We appreciate that. And if you would like more information about what we offer inside of our Preeminent Producer programs, you can find out more by going to thepreeminentproducer.com. Until next time, we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Preeminent Producer Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Preeminent Producer Podcast.